right, let's start with this sheet here. Okay, can you guys all see on my screen what does it say? Oh, actually, I should unmute you guys. You guys should be unmuted, but if you could unmute yourself and tell me what can you guys see on this screen at the moment, or you can say it in chat. Guys, hello. Have I lost everyone? Can someone tell me what we can see here? Whoop, what we can see right now on the page?
Rules.
Rules. Beautiful. That's what I wanted you guys to say. Yeah, I just wanted you to say, yeah, you can type in the chat, guys. If you want, if you don't want to like unmute yourself, that's completely fine. Right. What we've got here is the laboratory rules. Now, I gave this out as a sheet of paper, but obviously some of you guys will have that sheet of paper at school instead of with you right now. But I wanted to talk about some of the bits and pieces of this piece of paper so that we could do it, so we could get this done really quickly. This piece of paper has pretty much every science rule that we think that is really important in the science lab. You can tell that there are a lot of rules, and that's because there are a few things that can go wrong in the lab, the laboratory. Do you guys know what I mean? Like, so there are lots of things that can go wrong. Yeah, I can hear you. So if you want to mute yourself so I don't have to hear you mumbling, that'd be good. So let's go have a look at some of the sections here. The first section is general rules. And I'm going to go through some of these. I won't go through all of them because there's so many of them. But every so often when I go through them, I'm going to ask you guys a question about them. And I'd like you guys to either answer it in the chat or out loud. It's up to you guys how you want to answer that. I don't want to pick on people to answer because I'm not sure if that'll work very well. But if I see someone that hasn't answered in a long time, I might see how we go. So the first one's the generals. Never enter the laboratory without a teacher. No running or throwing things. You need to wear your proper school footwear. You should never perform experiments, your own experiments. This includes mixing any unused chemicals at the end of a practical session. Students love to do this. They're like, hey, so now that we've finished the experiment, can we like put this thing in the fire, or can we mix these chemicals together so we have a big mess at the end? The answer is no, because that experiment is usually planned out by a teacher, and if something goes wrong, you might not know that something could go wrong. Do not touch chemicals before the teacher tells you. Do not remove any equipment from the laboratory. Don't sit on the benches. The prep room is a no, you can't eat in the lab. So my question for you guys in this first section is this. Why should students never enter into a laboratory without a teacher present? Can I get you guys to either answer that out loud or put it in chat? Why should you never enter a laboratory without a teacher around? If you want to send it to me privately so that not everyone can see your answer. But yeah, Sage just said because something bad might happen. Yeah, but here's my question in addition to you. Yeah, something bad might happen, but anytime. You could get hurt or something wrong can happen. Yes, you could get hurt or something wrong could happen anytime. Why is it important to have it to make sure that there's a teacher with you then?
So the teacher can supervise at all times.
Yeah, so the teacher can supervise at all times. Sage said, so then you know what you're doing. Yeah, the main idea is that if you are, if you go into a laboratory, right, and you know let's just say you don't know what you're doing, you light a bunch and there are some chemicals and you play around with the chemicals and something bad happens. You're right, maybe a fire starts, maybe someone gets hurt. If there's no teachers with you, then there's no one that can help you. So that's why this is the #1 rule. It's really important. And it's one of those rules that I'm going to be paying really close attention to, because sometimes the door to the lab room isn't locked and students go, oh, well, I'm just going to walk in there and put my books in. Like, no, because remember, you shouldn't enter a laboratory without a teacher present, because if something goes wrong, then you could be in some real trouble. Let's read a few more of these. So the next one's equipment and apparatus. So you're going to be familiar with the equipment. If there's broken glass, don't touch it. Tell the teacher. They will either clean it up or direct you to, or put the broken glass in a specially labeled broken glass bin. When heating substances, make sure you don't point it to your face. Turn off the Bunsen burner. Always use heat-proof mat. Never leave any equipment, and always turn electrical unattended, and always turn electrical equipment off before pulling the plug out at the outlet. So I want to talk about some of these. So the first one that I wanted to talk about in this one would be number 3. The reason I want to talk about number 3 is because this actually happened not last year, but I think it was like 4 years ago, right? So what happened is a student made a mistake. We don't know what year level it was. We think it was a younger year level. We think it was probably a year 7 student. But a student made a mistake with a piece of glass, right? And they accidentally smashed one of the beakers. And what happened is that, and you think, okay, did the person get hurt? No, the student was actually fine. But they didn't want the teacher to know that they'd broken this piece of equipment because they didn't want to get in trouble, okay? So what they did was they put the broken piece of glass in the bin. You think, okay, sure. The problem happened was later on at 3:30 p.m., a cleaner came to clean up the classroom and picked up all the rubbish, picked up the bin, and managed to cut his hand because the glass had pierced through the bag and cut his hand. Now this actually happened. We then had to tell all the students this rule. And I think this is a pretty, the cleaner was fine, they bandaged the hand up. But the important part about this rule, and I think the reason that I tell this story, is that it shows you 2 things. One, broken glass needs to go in the broken glass bin, because we know that bin has broken glass in it. Well, there's not going to be a cleaner picking up a bin, the broken glass bin with their hands. We're going to be very careful with how we deal with that. And the second thing is, and this is a second rule that's somewhere else in this, is that if you make a mistake or you get yourself hurt, tell the teacher. Because it's better for me to know that you've made a mistake and we can fix it properly, rather than something like this happening and someone gets hurt. And so that's why I always tell students, beakers cost less money than a visit to the hospital. So I would rather you tell me we broke a beaker. I might say to you, what were you doing? Were you being unsafe? And it's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, you're a bit in trouble. Or maybe it's like, it was an accident, slipped out of my hand. That's fine. I'm not going to yell at you. I just want to know so we can make sure we do things safely. This one underneath it, I've seen some students almost get themselves burnt. What that means is, by the way, what does this mean? That means that if you're heating a test tube up, you shouldn't point the test tube at your face, because what happens? What's going to happen if I'm heating this test tube up and it's pointing at my face? Can someone let me know? What do you think?
Drink it.
What's going to happen to the test tube if I'm heating it up? So I'm heating this test tube up and it's pointing right at my face. If it's full of water, what's going to happen?
Oh, you're going to drink it.
No, it's worse than that.
Gonna be on your face.
Gonna go on your face. Ladies and gents, things in test tube boil really quickly. So what happens is that it can boil up and go all over your face. And I haven't seen it go on someone's face, but I've seen it, you know, students doing that. So what you're supposed to do is you heat up the test tube so it's pointing away from you. When that test tube is pointing away from you, if it does heat up and it goes out everywhere, at least then it's not going to go out towards your face. So that's how you make sure that's safety. That's how you make sure you do that safely. Always turn the Bunsen burner off. Using the matches provided. Always use heat-proof mat under all heating apparatus are hot. Never leave anything unattended. So don't just walk away from the experiment. You guys will normally be with 2 people, so that's okay. And I think most of those the rest of them are okay. What if it's pointing at another student and it explodes? Well, that's even worse. You should always point it away from everyone in the room. So point it towards the back of the room. Okay, so we're going to quickly talk about these ones too, and this might take us to the full lessons. Okay, never taste chemicals. Now that might sound obvious, but still, we have, as I told you already, there is an experiment we do halfway through the year with coffee, and students think, oh, it's just coffee, but it's also coffee that's being like in the lab. Who knows what's being added to it? It's in a beaker. Who knows what's been in that beaker? So even if you think that it's safe, never drink anything or eat anything in the lab. If you want to smell, if you need to test the smell of gases and vapor, carefully waft the vapors carefully towards yourself. Now this one, hold on a second. This one is actually important. This one is one that Mr. Greer did wrong and almost knocked himself out because he almost killed himself with acetone when he was a scientist in a lab. What the wafting technique is that you use the test tube like this, but you use your hand and you waft the smell into your hand. That's how you smell a test tube. You do not smell a test tube by holding it straight up to your nose and breathing in, because this is dangerous. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of people that have that looks like he's trying to eat it, but it looks like I've heard of people that have, like, you know, gone unconscious because they didn't realize there was chloroform in there, and then they've fallen. Yeah, so don't do that. You want to hold, let me see if I can demonstrate. You want to hold the test tube up like this, and you're going to blow it into your nose like that. You might look silly doing it, but trust me, it's better doing it like this than falling unconscious. What happened to me was I didn't realize there was acetone in one of the test tubes, and I was like sniffing it really closely, and I felt like it was like going up into my brain. Not a healthy way or safe way to do things. Never drink out of the labware. You should always check the labels. If a container has no labels, don't use it. Never pour unused chemicals back into the bottle, because that could end up dangerous there. Make sure you dispose of chemicals as the teacher says. Some chemicals you can pour down the sink. 100% fine to pour down the sink. Some chemicals you can't pour down the sink because they will kill all the fishes. And because ultimately, ultimately some fish can't have certain chemicals, and we don't want to put dangerous chemicals into the environment. Don't hold bottles by the neck or the lid. Hold them in the, nothing drips onto your label, and only use the amount of the chemicals required. Yeah, I kind of maybe, look, I'll tell you this story later, not today, but yeah, there was a small explosion caused by myself last year because I used the inappropriate amount of chemicals. And yeah, I got in trouble myself with the principal. So let's not talk about that one. I'll tell you about it. Tell you that story another day. Keep your bench space tidy. Don't move your chair to the side. Solid waste. Oh my God, this is the worst. Students do this all the time. Don't put matches in the sink. Don't put like pieces of paper in the sink. The sink is for water and that's it. So I hate walking around the lab afterwards and being like, why is there a practical here? Why is there filter paper in here? Why is there matches in here? Matches should go in the bin. Obviously, once they've cooled down a little bit, but in the bin. Wash your hands thoroughly after. Okay, can I get this? Let's do this one. Can I get people to answer this one for me, either in chat or out loud? Why should you have to wash your hands after using chemicals? Why should that be important? Why would you want to wash your hands after using chemicals?
Because you might have chemicals on your hands.
Mm-hmm.
You won't want to put your hands in your mouth when you're eating.
Exactly. So a couple of years ago, we used to use a chemical called lead nitrate. Now, lead nitrate is actually not that dangerous, but it does have lead in it. So if you don't wash it, I would always tell students, wash your hands, because if you then go out and you eat yourself like a sandwich or some, whatever your whatever food you're eating, if you don't wash your hands, you're going to eat lead, and lead is actually really toxic to humans. So you want to make sure that you wash your hands whenever we deal with chemicals. We will be wearing gloves sometimes, but you should still wash your hands. Last but not least, emergencies. If your skin or eyes come in contact with a chemical, immediately wash it out. I'll talk to you about the eye wash station on Friday when we go to school. Burns should be placed under water. Cuts or injuries, you need to tell your teacher. All of these, you should tell your teacher. If you're in too much pain, get your partner to tell your teacher. Sir, I have burnt your hand. Okay, cool. Sir, like Tara, accidentally got chemicals in her eyes. Great, let's deal with that. Don't just try to fix it on your own. If there's a fire, you should tell your teacher immediately that there's a fire. Don't use water unless instructed. Now that might seem really silly. You might be like, if there's a fire, you should pour water on it. I'm going to be teaching you guys this year that sometimes water can make the biggest explosions of all. So, and sometimes water is something you shouldn't add to a fire. If you've got a fire happening, you should turn off the gas if you can.
Okay.
If it's safe to do so, but then tell the teacher, we'll grab a fire extinguisher, we'll get it sorted out. And then this is what I just said. Any mishap, burn, cut, injury, broken glass, or spill must be reported to the teacher. If you spill like a chemical on the ground, let the teacher know, and so I can let everyone else know. Dan, you got that correct. You want to get germs in your hand and get big explosion. So ladies and gents, that is the full list of all the rules. There are other, of course, rules, but that's most of them. And at the bottom of this list, there is a part which says student signature and parent or guardian signature. So now I'm going to explain this. I can't let you guys do the experiment until this is signed by both you and your parents. Now, if you've got that signed already, this is the page, by the way. Let me just do this. Give me a second. Back. This is the page here. I'm not sure if this is back in front of the screen, but it is there. But this is all the information, the student laboratory guide. You've got everything here. And then on the back, at the very bottom, it says the student signature and the parent signature. Now, if you haven't got one of these sheets because you weren't here on Monday, then you can either print one of these out or you can collect one. So I cannot let you guys do practicals until I've got this ticked off. So by you and your parents, and then I would like you to glue it in to your books along like one of these sides, maybe this side here, so I can see the signatures on the other side. The important thing is here, it's a student signature. So make sure you're aware that you agree to these rules. So that means that you should have a look at these rules yourself. If there's a rule that you don't understand, you should let me know. Maybe there's a contact lens rule. Maybe you're like, I don't know what this means. Can you tell me? I wear contacts. I don't understand. That's something we can work on.